The Forgotten Manor. Chapter 1. The Letter. Oliver Westwood had always been drawn to mysteries, but he never expected to become part of one. It all began on a chilly October morning when a peculiar letter arrived at his London flat. The envelope was aged, its edges slightly torn, and the ink was smudged in places. There was no sender's name, only an address written in elegant handwriting. Westwood Manor, Ravenshore Village. Oliver frowned. Westwood Manor. He had never heard of it before, yet it bore his family name. Curious, he opened the letter. To Oliver Westwood. I write to you in great urgency. There is a matter of grave importance regarding your family estate. You must come at once. Time is of the essence. Signed, Henshaw, caretaker of Westwood Manor. Oliver had no recollection of ever having a family estate. His parents had never mentioned it. Yet something about the letter felt significant. After a brief hesitation, he packed a bag and caught the first train to Ravenshore Village. Chapter 2. The Journey to Ravenshore. The train ride was long and uneventful. Ravenshore was a remote village, far from the bustling city. As the train chugged past rolling hills and thick forests, Oliver felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if he had been here before. Upon arrival, a dense fog hung low over the village, giving it an eerie atmosphere. He found a carriage waiting for him just as the letter had instructed. The driver, a solemn man in his 50s, tipped his hat and gestured for Oliver to climb in. You'll be going to the manor then? The driver asked in a hushed tone. Yes. Do you know much about it? Oliver asked. The driver hesitated before answering. It's been abandoned for years. No one dares go near it. Strange things happen there. Oliver felt a chill, but he dismissed it. Ghost stories didn't scare him. As the carriage rattled along the cobbled path, the trees thickened and the air grew colder. Finally, they arrived at Westwood Manor. Chapter 3. The Forgotten Manor. The manor stood tall and imposing, its stone walls covered in ivy. The windows were dark and the iron gates creaked as they swung open. A single lantern flickered near the entrance, casting long shadows. Oliver knocked and the door slowly creaked open. A tall, thin man with deep-set eyes greeted him. You must be Mr. Westwood, the man said. I am Arthur Henshaw, the caretaker. Oliver shook his hand. I received your letter. Why was I called here? Arthur's expression darkened. Because, sir, this house belongs to you. And something within it has been waiting for your return. Oliver felt his heart pound, waiting for his return. He had never set foot here before, had he? Arthur led him inside. The air smelled of dust and old books. The walls were lined with portraits, all of them bearing a resemblance to Oliver. One in particular caught his eye, a man who looked exactly like him, dressed in Victorian attire. That, Arthur said, noticing Oliver's gaze, is your great-great-grandfather, Jonathan Westwood. And you, sir, are his last living heir. Oliver swallowed hard. He had no idea his family history ran so deep. Chapter 4. The Hidden Room. Arthur led Oliver through the grand hall, where chandeliers hung from the ceiling and the wooden floors creaked beneath their feet. There is something you must see, Arthur said, guiding him to the library. The library was enormous, filled with ancient books and forgotten knowledge. Arthur moved toward a bookshelf and pressed against a hidden panel. With a low rumble, a secret door swung open, revealing a spiral staircase leading downward. Oliver hesitated. Why had his family kept a hidden room? With a deep breath, he followed Arthur down into the darkness. The air was damp, and the flickering lantern cast eerie shadows on the stone walls. At the bottom of the stairs lay a wooden chest covered in dust. Arthur handed Oliver an old key. Your family's secrets lie within. Oliver unlocked the chest and lifted the lid. Inside he found letters, journals, and an old pocket watch. But what caught his attention was a single leather-bound book with the words, The Westwood Curse, engraved on the cover. Chapter 5. The Westwood Curse. Oliver opened the book and began to read. It detailed the dark history of his family, filled with tales of betrayal, lost fortunes, and a curse that had haunted the Westwoods for generations. According to the journal, Jonathan Westwood had made a terrible bargain in the 1800s. In exchange for great wealth, he had promised his firstborn son to a mysterious figure known as the Watcher in the Shadows. Oliver's hands trembled. This can't be real. But Arthur looked grave. Many strange things have happened in this house. Shadows move when no one is there. Whispers echo in the halls. And every Westwood heir disappears. Oliver's pulse quickened. Was that why he had never heard of his ancestors? Had they all vanished? At that moment, a sudden gust of wind blew through the chamber. The lantern flickered, and in the darkness, Oliver thought he saw something, a shadow shifting unnaturally in the corner of the room. A whisper filled the air. "You should not have come." Chapter 6. Confronting the Past. Oliver's breath caught in his throat. Arthur grabbed his arm. "We must leave. Now." They ran up the stairs, but the door slammed shut behind them. The house groaned as if it were alive. Oliver gritted his teeth. He refused to be another lost heir. Pulling out the pocket watch from the chest, he remembered the inscription, "Time is the answer." In desperation, he turned the hands of the watch backward. The moment he did, the house seemed to shudder and the whispers stopped. The darkness lifted and the door creaked open. Arthur exhaled in relief. "You broke the curse." Oliver felt lightheaded. He didn't fully understand how, but he knew that the grip the past had on him, on his family, had finally ended. Chapter 7. A New Beginning. The next morning, the fog around Ravenshore had cleared. The manor, once dark and menacing, now looked peaceful. Oliver decided to stay. Westwood Manor was his home now, and he would honor his family's history by giving it a new purpose. He restored the estate, turning it into a grand library where people could come and learn its stories. As for the Watcher in the Shadows, it never returned. And yet, on some nights when the wind was just right, Oliver swore he could hear a voice whispering through the halls. "Time is the answer."